Hello everybody, welcome to this live video or the replay of it, whichever is more relevant for you. Today we're going to talk about what you cannot change about money. I'm going to apologize ahead of time for what I'm 100% sure is going to be banging in the background. Colombia is the least quiet country I have ever lived in. Welcome to the fray. So this is it's a Welcome to Infinite Being School, by the way, where we just dive into topics and explore them. And this particular series of videos is to kick off and launch a series of clearing loops that I've created for you, along with energy pulls, to begin to really unstick us from some of the most dominant money living things that we're dealing with right now. So when I asked what creates what you cannot change about money, that came from this request for a clearing loop to handle whatever it is you've decided you have to do to create money. It was really interesting when I was asking people what they were struggling with the most in regards to money. One of the things they're struggling with is everything I think I have to do in order to create money. And so I had to really kind of go digging on this one, because I was like, what is it? What's the energy underneath? Well, I have to do this to create money. And then what usually follows, which is and I don't want to do that. So I really did spend some time with this one. And hi, Maxine. And if you guys are live, say hi. I love saying hi back. So where we're going is not expected, okay? It's not what you think I'm going to talk about. It's not even what I thought I would talk about. Where we're going to go today is something called causal reality. Now, before we get into what kind of feels like a little bit dry stuff, what I want to preface this with is I've been having a lot of conversations with a fellow creator friend of mine. And for the most part, she usually gets stuck in what she has decided she wants to do and whether or not that thing is creating money. And money is this representation. Money is a manifestation of what we're willing to receive or not receive. So for some of you, this might not seem as relevant, but that's fine. You can pass this one and go on to the next video. It's this manifestation of what we're willing to receive and not receive, and willing to choose and not choose, willing to be and not be. So what she and I were talking a lot about was this thing where she's constantly doing something to try to get a result. Hi, Karen. Hi, Poppy. Trying to do something to get a result. Can anybody relate to that, where you're I'm doing these things in order to obtain this? That is A plus B equals C reality. It's called causal reality, where there's a cause and there's an effect. And anytime you're doing, or I'm doing, something that's on a polarized, flat plane, which is what, polarization is, this equals this on a linear scale, it's limited reality. It's not the infinite spectrum of infinite possibilities, the creative adventure of seeing how many ways money can show up in your life. It's when I do this, I'm definitely going to get this. And so we set ourselves up instantaneously for disappointment. So that's what's called a projection and an expectation. And that can only create separating from you, judging you, and rejecting you. So I really wanted to gift us a conversation and a clearing loop around unlocking this, because I think this is so just dominant in the way we function with money, with people, in business. So let me dive into the small bit of education around this that I want to gift you before I invite you to get the loop, if this is something you're dealing with. All right, I'm gonna pull directly from the material here, okay? So first of all, what is causal reality? Causal reality is where cause always leads to an effect. This is also that thing where we're quite certain when somebody does something let's say something, I don't even know. How can I put this into an example? How many of you guys assume that if somebody responds negatively to something you've done, that it was your fault, basically? So if you've said something and somebody has a feeling about it, and somebody doesn't like what you've said or whatever, then you must have done something wrong. That's causal reality. You've determined that you're the cause of that effect. Okay? So causal reality is where a cause always leads to an effect. It's like you've been given these building blocks, and that's how you've learned to create reality. And the blocks are primarily judgment and rightness and wrongness, judgment, wrongness, projections, expectations, separations, judgments, and rejection of you. So there's all these judgment elements just composing causal reality. Cause and effect reality is always a linear function. So there's three components to causal reality. There's causal incarceration, where you think there's a cause and effect in the world. And basically, if you do this, something's going to happen over here. But literally, guys, that's not how our reality works. Our reality is a reality of magic. It's a reality of ask and receive. It's a reality of choose and choices that create stuff. That's our reality, is this acoustical kind of ocean. And we keep trying to, and we've learned to try to make our reality into a computational reality where this equals this. So that's why things don't work. When you're trying to do computation, or you're trying to get money or anything, that's where it stops functioning. So that's why we want to address this. So causal incarceration is that if you do this, something's going to happen over here. So basically, you're imprisoned by this reality. It's where you put yourself in a prison cell and you lock yourself away. It's this invisible wall you put around you to make this reality seem real. So that's causal incarceration. You're like incarcerating yourself in this reality. You have no other choice when you've incarcerated yourself. Causal incarnation is anything that is causal reality that you do over and over again, trying to get a different result. So I catch myself in this kind of stuff all the time. In fact, for me, it's a little more obvious to see this with relationship, where so I was trying to get a different result in the relationship with communication. Okay. In my ideal scene of communication, Andres would be communicating exactly the way that I want him to, right? So we all have these ideal scenes of like how things should show up. And so what I started to notice is that I had this ideal scene, and he kept being himself, and I kept trying to do the same thing to obtain a different result that kept resulting in not that result. It was a really funny moment for me, because for the 80-umpteenth time that I was frustrated about this, I finally was willing to look at what was going on. And it was in incarnation. I was trying to do the same thing to get a different result. The same thing, the same choice I kept making didn't create the different result. And this is where you have to look at with money. Like, are you trying to do the same things to create a different result? So I had to sit with myself and go, okay, I didn't really get clear on what am I trying to create here. And I kind of had to wade through my own world. Like, what am I trying to create? Well, I want him to do something different. Okay, but for what reason? Right? So I had to really break this down for myself. So maybe you can use this for you too in regards to money or anything. Break it down for yourself. Like, okay, so for what reason do I want this to change? Well, this, and this. Okay, so is what you're doing creating what you want? This is me talking to myself. Literally, I do this. No. Okay, so are you going to have to choose something different to get a different result? Yes. Okay, so then I could finally ask, what other choices do I have here in regards to this? And everything I'm projecting and expecting in regards to this, I destroy and uncreate it all. Right, wrong, good, bad, POC, all natures, boys, poets, and beyonds. So projections and expectations are what lock us into this causal reality, all right? Then there's causal incongruities. Again, this is where what occurs is not congruous. So it's like, it's where you try to make disparate things somehow equal each other and basically use that to create the wrongness of you. It's where you always know that something should be possible that's like magic or greatness. But what you see show up is always less than that. And it's always less than what you know is possible. So that incongruity is the distance, the discrepancy between what you know should be possible and what you keep seeing show up. So I know that's a lot of information, but this clearing loop actually addresses this whole reality without you really needing to understand any of that. What you've got to get is that we've locked ourselves into causal reality. And like all of this series of videos is meant to contribute to each other, because these are all components of what creates what you can't change about money. When you can't change something about money, you've locked yourself into trying to do the same thing to get a different result. You've locked yourself into, if I do this, I'll get this effect. You've basically locked yourself into the projection and expectation reality. And what's required to change money is to just simply choose something different, anything different. Choice is what creates. Choice creates, choice creates, choice creates. So like even this week with my choice for, inventing these clearing loops and inviting you to have them and all the different ways that I could do that, it was a choice that created a different future. You guys got a different future. I got a different future. So it was totally different than what I was doing before. And I constantly have to kind of bust myself out of my own jails of like, I can easily get into these patterns of, well, this is what we do, and this is what this should do, and yet it's not doing that, right? Like, things never do what they think you should, what you think they should. People never do what you think they should. Things only do what they do, and things change over time. So again, it's like all of these videos, all of these conversations are this, hopefully this restoration of presence and engagement and malleability, because that's really what's required for things to work. So let's wrap this in a messy little bow and run this little clearing here. Okay, what have you made so vital about causal incarcerations, causal incarnations, and causal incongruities that creates everything in physical and financial reality that you cannot change? And everything that is times a godzillion where you destroy and uncreate it all. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all nine shorts, boys, poets, and beyonds. Again, go to theclearingstatement.com and very soon clearingwithcrystal.com to get more on the clearing statement. What have you made so vital about causal incarcerations, causal incarnation, and causal incongruity that creates everything in physical reality you cannot change? And everything that is times a godzillion where you destroy and uncreate it all. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all nine shorts, boys, poets, and beyonds. So again, grab the clearing loop that's attached to this video. What I would do is grab the clearing loop and add the energy pulse so that you're both clearing out the unconsciousness around this. This is going to clear out unconsciousness around trying to get results, doing things to obtain a particular outcome, and whatever else you're aware of. And then add the daily energy pull to it so that you have the stimulation of new energies. Because we really constantly have to be working on both fronts if we want a different reality. We need to be letting go of the unconsciousness and also stimulating the new. And then the third part of that is just choosing new shit, right? So one more time, what have you made so vital about causal incarcerations, causal incarnation, and causal incongruities that creates everything in physical reality you cannot change? And everything that is times a godzillion where you destroy and uncreate it all. Right, wrong, good, bad, pod, all nine shorts, boys, poets, and beyonds. I get that this clearing loop is probably one of the most chopping through the concrete of unconsciousness clearing loops that I've put out so far. It's going to take a brave person to really start to institute this, because this will start to really unravel all of the linearity in your world. And most of us have learned to do linearity as a means to an end. It's like, we go to college to get a good job. We marry this person in order to have a family. We move to this city in order to right? So we're really taught to function on a linear plane. But your reality is not linear. It's acoustical. It's this, you're an organism. And organisms grow in the way that they can, how they can. And so if you don't restore that organism ability, you're always going to be struggling in a reality that's not yours. Your reality is a reality of magic. It's a reality of ask and receive. So check it out. I adore you, and I will see you for the next conversation.